Okay, so here's a quick phone video just to help you guys out with the patching for the RSS1111 midterm practical. Let's start with our sources. You can see here that we've got vocals into a vocal mic, we've got a guitar amp going into a dynamic mic, and then we have an electric guitar going into an active DI box that's padded. A copy of the guitar is going through to the mini amp so that it's making sound for the dynamic mic, and we're using the balanced output of the active DI to record a separate direct channel on the console. So let's start off by connecting all those to the mic panel in the ISO booth. Here's our condenser microphone for the vocals. I'm going to connect it to mic panel A1. Here is the dynamic microphone on the amplifier, and we're going to connect it to microphone panel A2. Okay, now here's the DI. You can see we have the guitar plugged to the input, and you can see that the through is connected to the amp, so it'll actually make noise. Now, because this is an active DI, we're also using the pad. The pad is engaged there, so you can see. So that just leaves the balanced output, which is going to connect over here to mic panel A3. Okay, so there's our sources plugged in properly. Now, we're also going to need a talkback microphone eventually to connect to our headphone mixes. So, we're going to connect that. Here's our talkback mic into talkback mic in 1. Okay, so now that everything's plugged in properly, we can take it to the next step. We want to now connect our mic panels to the console. So here is the condenser on A1 going to preamp input 1. Here is the dynamic microphone on A2 connecting to preamp input 2. And here is the active DI on mic panel A3 going to preamp input 3. Now, we need to supply some phantom power to the condenser mic on 1 and as well to the active DI on 3 for them to operate. Okay, at this point you can go ahead and set gains, have someone talk in the mic, play the guitar. And before I turn up the faders, I'm going to add an Ultra Q unit into my signal flow here. So this is our serial effect on the vocal microphone for channel 1. So I'm going to find the insert send for 1. I'm going to patch it over to the Ultra Q input 1. And then output 1 returns to the same channel. Insert return 1. Boom. There's our inline effect taken care of. Okay, if I follow the block diagram, we're now at the faders. So I'm going to turn them on now and up. So here's channels 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to bring them up to the levels that they're listed there. But I'm not going to quite assign them to stereo buses or groups yet. I'm going to do that later. I want to address the auxes next because they're next on the block diagram. But I've had to turn up these faders so that any post-mode auxiliary knobs make it through to the aux send faders. Okay, so let's build our headphone mixes with the aux sends first. We've got a mono headphone mix on TRS panel AB1, and it's telling us that we need to have the vocals and the mini amp. That's channels 1 and 2 to be turned up on aux 1 to get there. So here's channel 1 on aux 1 at unity, and here's channel 2 on aux 1 at -3. I'm going to set them both in pre-mode because it's for a headphone mix. We want them to be in pre-mode so that if I change the faders here, it doesn't affect their headphone mix volume. Okay, and here is the master fader for aux 1, so I'm just going to turn that up. Okay. Next, we've got the stereo headphone mix here. So we're going to use the third auxiliary knob as a left channel input, use the fourth as a right channel input. So you can see here that, again, we want the same thing. The vocal mic and the mini amp on channels 1 and 2 to be turned up on aux 3. So here's aux 3 on channels 1 and 2, going up in volume. Okay, pre-mode as well. because of a headphone mix. Now channel 4 is the right ear, but it only has vocals in it. So we're going to add aux 4 to channel 1 only. Great, so that's got my stereo headphone mix built now. And here's my master faders for that stereo headphone mix. Okay, before I do aux 5, which is the reverb, I want to patch things to the headphones and get that taken care of. So I will use blue for that here. Here's aux send 1 going to TRS-AB1. And here is aux send 3 and 4 for our stereo headphone mix going to TRS-AB3 and 4. So that means that we have now connected our mono headphone mix and our stereo headphone mix to the TRS panel in the ISO booth. So over here in the ISO booth, I can just connect a pair of headphones directly to TRS1 and I'll get the mono headphone mix in it. Meanwhile, our stereo headphone mix is going to require a Y cable. So here's a Y cable I've got in a distro box. Here's one side of the Y cable going into 3 and the other side going into 4. That then plugs in on the stereo jack into the distro box input, and we make sure this button's up so it's in stereo mode. Now any pair of headphones plugged into these jacks will receive the stereo mix. Okay, now that those mixes are actually getting the headphones, let's make sure the talkback mic gets there as well. So, we've got a headphone mix on aux 1, and then we've got a headphone mix on 3 and 4. So there they go. Here's my volume for my talkback mic, and I can turn it on when I'm ready to talk. Okay, headphones done. Let's take a look at aux 5, because that's our parallel effect. It's got some reverb. Now, first of all, we can see here that aux 5 has all 3 channels on it. We're going to turn up aux 5 to unity, and then on channel 1, and then -3 on channels 2 and 3. So, here's aux 5 to unity, and then aux 5 on channel 2 a little bit quieter, and aux 5 on channel 3 a little bit quieter too. Okay, we're not going to put those in pre-mode. We want this parallel effect to run in post mode, simply because if we change the level here in the mix, we may want the effect to come down with it. Okay, now that we know what's coming out of aux 5, I'm going to turn up the master fader for it. And then I'm going to go ahead and patch that now. So aux send 5 is not going to a pair of headphones. Instead, it's going to a reverb unit. So here's the reverb 500 input 1. Right there. So it sends as a mono signal, but the effect that's created is stereo. So we're going to go ahead and patch 1 and 2 from the reverb 500 output over to aux return 1L and 1R, just below the sends here. Okay, so that's got the patching done. We've got aux 5 going to the reverb unit, and the effect created by the reverb unit is returning to stereo aux return section 1 here. Okay, now in the block diagram, we can see aux 5 getting into the reverb 500, and when it returns, the auxiliary return section is sending it 3 different ways at -15 decibels. To the stereo bus, to aux 1, and to aux 4. That way we get a bit of verb in both headphone mixes as well as our speakers. So, here's how we assign it to the stereo bus. We push down the stereo button, and we turn this up to about noon, give or take, just, quite a bit quieter than unity for -15. Okay, here's aux 1 for the mono headphone mix. Now it's getting some verb. And here's aux 4 for the right ear on the stereo headphone mix. It's receiving some verb now too. All right, so that takes care of all the auxiliary sends as well as the return section. So we are now right here for our fader assignments for our main mix. So let's start off by looking at the vocal mic. It goes straight to the stereo bus. So vocal mic on channel 1 going straight to the stereo bus. Now we can see that channels 2 and 3 need to be grouped onto group fader 1. So here I am grouping it pushing down group 1 and 2 and then panning them both hard left so they go to group fader 1 only. It means that over here I'm going to turn on group fader 1, and as you can see on the diagram, it is going to the stereo bus as well. So there it goes too. Okay, that means we now have a mix at our stereo bus. I'm going to turn the stereo bus on, bring it up to unity, and then we're going to AFL it to the monitor section. That means that our entire mix is here, and it's the only thing going in the monitor section, which will be connected to the speakers. So let's do that now. I will do the monitor section in black here. We're going to connect Wymon L and Wymon R to speaker input L and R. Okay, and I'm going to connect the sub as well. So here's the LFE out for the LFE in. Okay, here's my left and right speaker volume on the monitor section. And here's my volume knob for the subwoofer. Okay, that's the whole midterm practical in about 11 and a half minutes. Okay, good luck, guys.